Hello, welcome. Today I'm answering a question that I got on the Discord. Link down below if you want to ask a question about writing, comics, what have you, or hang out with just some cool comic people. The Discord has been bopping lately. But I'm answering a question that I got from Elliot Infinity. And that question was about decision paralysis and how to know if you are chasing a good idea or a bad idea in your story. How do you know that you're not just getting stuck on some little details here and there? And when it comes to this question, I think that I take some umbrage with this idea that you can get overfixated on little random details of world building that don't mean anything, because part of the whole brainstorming process is you have to come up with bad ideas, right? Like, it's okay to come up with bad ideas. It's okay to chase bad ideas. And I think a lot of us have different thinking styles, right? And different brainstorming styles. And when it comes to some people, you're able to think of like a big premise and really have this top-down approach and come up with like this overarching thing kind of right away. And that's what you focus on. And you don't get stuck on these little details. But other people will have like a more bottom-up approach to like thinking and brainstorming and coming up with all of like the details about the little things, really understanding why your story works, understanding like every little bit about a character, even if it's irrelevant later when you write the story. Like maybe that's something that's actually important to you. It is an important aspect of the brainstorming process. And I would just say not to knock that stuff, because I think it's valid and it's okay to chase after these details. A lot of writing is not actually sitting and writing, like despite what I say sometimes, but like a lot of writing is thinking. A lot of writing is like coming up with ideas, thinking about ideas, changing your mind, coming up with like all your characters' favorite dessert orders, like a lot of stuff that doesn't actually matter. That's just kind of like maybe important to you and it helps you think of them in a different way. If you're having like issues coming up with like major plot things, like you never get out of this in the weeds phase of things, then I think that in and of itself is not the issue. It might be that your issue is that you are not brainstorming these larger picture things. You're not brainstorming big plot sweeping movement stuff. Like maybe you just really like the detail stuff and that's where you feel safe, and that can be an issue. I think that is an issue, whereas the coming up with tons of things and chasing after all these like little ideas, like I don't think that's an issue. I think you can find really cool, interesting, unique ideas by delving into like the little stuff that other people don't necessarily think about. But it only becomes at expense of that is if you're never doing your homework and looking for like big plot, motivational driving forces. I think some of the major differences between kind of like this really detailed, fixated type of stuff and the more important character and plot details is just kind of motivation and movement and like a disruption of status quo that you might be afraid to kind of approach in your writing. So if you do focus on these little details, I would think about like why. Like maybe is this paralysis something that is coming from the fact that like you have set up all these beautiful little details, how your world works, and now you are asking me to take a sledgehammer to it. Is that kind of the fear? And like I would interrogate that thought a little, because that is definitely something that I think stops people. Is you work really hard making this beautiful world and then you're afraid to like shake it by having a villain come up and explode it, or like you come up with all these relationship dynamics and then you're afraid to like throw in a new character to the mix that is kind of like the impetus for like a new plot movement. And one of my go-to like solutions to this is think about this world that you created, like one way to solve this is to think about the world that you have created and think about the tension that came in order to create it. Try setting a story that's in the past, because a lot of times we write big plots that happen before our story happens. Then we can kind of turn things on our heads and be like, okay, maybe I wasn't actually writing a starting point for the story. Maybe this is the ending point. Other times you might have a world that you have a built-in premise and then you're just kind of afraid to tackle it. I think that fear is usually like the driving force that is like stopping people from really experimenting and shaking things up. And I think you just need to acknowledge that and start making waves in your story. Find ways to make things worse for your characters, find ways that you want your characters to change. We talk about having characters with flaws, which is paramount. You need to have flaws, but also have a world with flaws, have a setup that has flaws. You want to be able to change things, right? Like stories have momentum. So if the family dynamic doesn't have anywhere that it needs to go, if the relationship dynamic doesn't have anywhere that it needs to go, if your fantasy world doesn't have any issues, you need to add issues so that those can change, there can be transition, there can be movement. So that is my advice. Focus on the little things, make intricate worlds, don't feel bad about that, and don't feel bad about chasing an idea that doesn't go anywhere. But at the same time, you need to create movement, you need to create waves, you need to shake things up, and that would be my advice on how to do it. If you have any other questions, like I said, link in the description below to the Discord. I appreciate all of you who have been showing up. I'm going to be adding new emotes there. It's great. And consider becoming a YouTube member if you want to get these videos early. I got Ursula to start making videos again. That was me. I did that. I mean, she did it, but like I got her back here. Yay. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.